Hello, thank you very much for your positive feedback. I'm so happy that you enjoyed part 1 of Vishwas in Conversation with Dr. Deepak Apte, Director, Bombay Natural History Society. In this part, I'll be exploring some of the unexplored facts about Deepak, his family, but also about what it means to lead nation's prestigious non-governmental organization in the field of biodiversity. His views about the NGO sector and success tips to upcoming biodiversity researchers. And yes, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, then do subscribe and don't forget to press that bell icon so that you get early notification of the upcoming episodes. For a biologist, especially taxonomist, describing new species is simply like finding centuries-old treasure. Deepak and his team has been successful enough in describing 4 new species. For a biological researcher, a species being named after him or her is the greatest reward of his or her life. Deepak is blessed with 2 species being named after him. So, from an education officer to conservation officer, then to a scientist, leading your own programs, becoming an assistant director, deputy director, you land up as a director of the NHS. And sometimes it's tough to lead the institutions which has a history. It has a legacy. So there are a set of expectations already on the table. And then there is likely to be a conflict between the traditions, the legacy, expectations, and what you as an individual would like to see institution proliferating or prospering. How has been your journey as a director of the NHS so far?
I'm living everything what you have said right now, day in and day out. I think for me, this journey has been fantastic. You are absolutely right, because BNHS is no ordinary institution. It's a 136-year formidable, reputation it has in the field of nature conservation and research. So heading an institution never going to be easy, no matter who heads that institution. Today it's me, tomorrow it will be somebody else, but it's going to be always a challenge. And it's always going to be challenged when you have stalwarts like Salim Ali, like JC, and like Baker, like whole range of people that were part of BNHS, like Prater and etc. etc. Uh, to maintain that scientific credibility, to build on that scientific credibility, to respond to the changing aspirations of the young generation. I think it's not an easy game to say, because we still have members who belong to that generation, which keep still talking about Salim Ali era, Prater era, and we have this generation which talks about John Singh era, and so how to blend these two? We don't want to forget our history. If we forget our history, then there's nothing in BNHS. We have to keep telling to generation, look, we have 136 years legacy. And I think that is a very strong learning we give it to our new generation is that this is not about a job. This is about an institution. So, and you will continue to carry that burden on your shoulder so long as you work in BNHS. Whether it's non-scientific cadre to scientific cadre, you have that legacy as a burden on your shoulder that you have to carry. And it's a burden we carry with pleasure and privilege. It's not something that we are, kind of bogged down. It's pleasure and privilege to have such a beautiful legacy of an institution. Of course, institutions change with time. When I was working as assistant director, that time Dr. Emani was director. He himself is a big name in the field of ornithology. So he shaped the institution the way he thought appropriate at that point of time. Now, when he retired, I took it over. I not only have a job to continue with that formidable work that has happened in 18 years of his tenure as a director, but I also want to scale it up further to, uh, in a way that we are able to do maximum outreach in terms of our work, cover as much area we can, important areas, cover as much species as we can, moving from a very non-conventional kind of an operating framework of BNHS was, as I said, it was kind of family with no formal structure of HR, and everything was kind of an ad hoc basis kind of an approach used to be there, right or wrong. Now we are a very, very professional body because you have to be professional. Today's circumstances, today's generation require you to be professional. It's a very competitive field today. 40 years ago, there was no other institution. Now, SECON was there, WWF was not there, WI was not there, NCBS was not there, ATRI was not there, NCF was not there. It was only BNHS. So it was an absolute monopoly about 4 decades ago. And then you have somebody like Dr. Salim Ali, who Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, Aura and Access all the way up to Prime Minister. And his the entire international name, fame, the kind of work he did, there was no one except PNHS. But today that is not the case. Today you have got all kinds of institutions, cutting edge science. Now when you are into a domain where you have now got 15, 20 institutions, having the same area of interest, having the same probably funding portfolio, then you need to approach very strategically. I think we need to find out what are our core strengths as an institution. Now, for example, when I took over, I have to do this whole homework for myself for first few months to understand. Okay, let's see what strength we have, what strength we don't have. I've said it is better to look at what we have and how we can scale that up so that we will get relatively better success in that sense. So for me, the obvious choice was bird migration, because bird migration is something BNHS started way back in 1927, and even today BNHS has a monopoly on that subject. The first fundamental change I decided to do in 2005 is that we need to work strategically. You have to have a strategic plan, because otherwise, all our projects where a donor want to give me X funding, so I will take that money and work for that project. Another one want to give me something else. So it was funding driven approach that we had 5 years ago. And I said, I don't want to function that way. These are 5 programs that I want. So I started Himalaya Climate Change Program as a long-term program. I started wetland as a long-term program. I started bird migration and flyway as a long-term program. Then my marine program, I wanted it to be long-term program. And I said, let's strategize. Let's identify which are the species that we want to work. Let's identify which are the seascape, landscape we want to work. And all funding today that is scattered, we will convince donor to channelize that funding into the strategic areas that we want to work. So that is a fundamental shift I could able to bring in last 5 years, is to get funding for what we want to work for. But today in last 5 years, we raise almost worth 100 crore for these 5 programs. And it's not just about money. I think in today's age, you require money to do cutting edge science, because you require that kind of technology, you require that kind of a human resource. So to retain that talent, to get these people, to give them an academic career, to give them a career path in an institution, you require secure finances. Now that shift has come in last 5 years, definitely. Otherwise, without people, what is the BNHS? It's just 4 walls.
Yeah.
Haunted house is made of people stays inside, work inside that those 4 walls. And now we work much more cohesively with government. Because see, no matter what you do, if all your recommendations, eventually who's going to implement? Neither you nor me. These are the in charge of forests or to your wetlands or to your grassland. Those managers are going to implement those suggestion recommendations. If they don't do, then what is use of your research? So you have to work with them. You have to tailor made your work in a sense that is useful for management point of view. So we work very closely with various state governments, government of India in last 5 years. The entire Central Asian Flyway program is a flagship program that we revived in last 3 years with full support of Ministry of Environment Forest. In
Mhm.
fact, CMS, this is one program our Honorable Prime Minister has announced that Government of India will take lead on this program at international level, starting a secretariat of Central Asian Flyway in Ministry of Environment Forest. I mean, we brought this program from ground to this level during CMS. So that kind of traction is necessary between us as a research body and with ministry as a policy maker body. You cannot work in isolation. You cannot keep on saying everything government do, you keep opposing. That's not what is going to yield anything to you.
Correct.
Of course, you have to raise voice against certain issues, but not on every issue.
As I said, I shifted my career from one discipline to another, from biologist to bioinformatician, and then to uh, science diplomat. And much part of my career was spent at the Global Biodiversity Information Facility.
Yeah.
And one of the programs that I championed was digitization of the museums.
Yes.
And I remember I wrote, in fact, the first data paper in biodiversity with one of the BNHS colleagues. And
Yes.
it was my dream to see these flagship museums accessible to people digitally.
Yeah.
May it be BSI, may it be ZSI, may it be BNHS. How do you see BNHS progressing on those paths?
Good you asked this question, and I'm delighted to say that we have already on way of digitization entire BNHS collection. In fact, 2018, when the previous Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis ji visited BNHS, and when he saw the collection, uh, he said, "Can anybody come and visit this collection?" I said, "Unfortunately, no, sir, because it's preserved and mostly for researcher." He said, "Then why don't you do this into your website?" So that is where he said, "No, no, Government of Maharashtra will help you to digitize that." So we got a large chunk of funding to the tune of 10 crore last year to digitize the entire BNHS collection, including metadata. We already have second floor of BNHS converted into digitization room, and we already digitize, I would say, up to 4,000 specimens that we have. We have more than 140,000 specimens with us. So it's going to take 5 6 years for us for digitization, but it's already started. And I think from another 2 or 3 years time, when we have this entire thing sorted out in a very systematic fashion, we will have an online portal on BNHS website for our collection. Well, fortunately, collection is a strength of BNHS, and we have been very, very, very particular about its maintenance. I think this is one of the best maintained collection that you'll see in South Asia, and we want it to be that way. So we are already on this. We are hoping by 2028 we will have entire collection digitized and on BNHS website. So our collection space is now completely full. There is nothing we can accommodate in that. So we are now creating a new setup. We got a new land, 28-acre land we brought in Chimur. And now we are building our independent center where we will have a collection separate facility, state of art, for which we are taking help of Naturalist Museum UK.
I'm so happy that you elaborated on this because not everybody can visit BNHS physically.
Yeah.
And the way research cycles today are, they are very expedited. They are not the same research cycles as they were in 80s or in early 2000s.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
We are in an express delivery system now, and therefore digitization will play a great role. And anything that you personally would like me to do and help assist your group on that with my little exposure, at GBIF and otherwise, I'll be very happy to do that. You yourself has a struggle, and it's an amazing story that I learned. How would you like to advise those who aspire to build their career in biodiversity conservation, or for that matter, in marine science or conservation administration?
I don't think I have a very easy answer for that. But one thing I would like to really advise this generation is that there is no substitute to field work. Today's generation somehow believe that you spend 2 months in the field and 9 months in front of computer doing some modeling. That's not what will help you to decipher complex nature. You have to spend time in nature to understand its dynamics. You will never be able to solve this jigsaw puzzle by using statistics or using all these technologies. If you are disconnected from nature, I think that's end of your learning. So even today, despite being director, I spend almost 200 days in the field. Like our human nature, even nature outside Mother Nature is much more dynamic. It keeps changing. So all your models that today you make will be irrelevant after 2 years just because that's how nature is. So therefore, my simple advice to all my graduate and postgraduate students is that for God's sake, spend time in the field. That will come more handy to you than all your degrees and percentages and grades. Because all data that a statistician will analyze will come from the field. That cannot be generated on the laptops. And that is, I think, fundamentally today completely lacking in our education system. I think our education system is completely outdated, outrageously outdated, I would say, and completely redundant. And today, I struggle to get good researchers. We have to fundamentally change our education system. Unless we do that, we'll continue to generate unemployed youths. Therefore, I think field exposure in wildlife is must. 60 to 70% of your time should be field experience, field work, and remaining 30 is all your analytics. I think besides this core domain knowledge, there are three areas I would say that these youths need to be equipped. I think first thing is your communication skills. You can be an absolutely brilliant scientist, but you cannot convey your science to a decision maker or a donor. Nobody is going to fund your program or nobody is going to take action on what your suggestions are. So you need to be an excellent communicator. So please build your skills of communication right from your education days. Second important thing is scientific writing. I was bad today. Even today, my writing is not as polished as one would expect. But at least I am able to put the larger ecological context to what work I am doing. Editing can be done now. There are professional editors who can help you to polish your language. That's not my worry anymore. But you need to understand the basics of ecology and those biological concepts. If you do not understand basic, then there's nothing you can do in terms of scientific writing. And I think some strong exposure to marketing, I would say, uh, do job of marketing salesperson for 1.5 years. Nothing wrong in that. I think that will allow you to shape your skills to sell your concept because I have seen some of the best scientists struggle to raise money for their research. While I was never an extraordinary person, but in last 5 years, I am still able to raise about 100 crore plus. It's all about all these additional learnings because you have to see a larger picture and you are able to sell that larger picture. I think besides your subject knowledge, hard field work, communication skill, uh, sharpening your marketing skills, and scientific writing for me is very important.
3 decades of work that you have done in Indian biodiversity conservation. In 3 decades, not every time we as a nation did right thing, and not every time we as a nation we failed. Sometimes we succeeded. To your mind, what has been the key errors as a nation we have done, and some of the key challenges that we have as a nation in ensuring sustainable development.
Okay, Vishwas, I need some time to make my point on this particular topic, if you allow me that time,
Go
because
ahead.
I think this is the exact dilemma of conservation today, Vishwas. Uh, we, as NGO fraternity itself, is so divided. Forget about government. I'm talking about NGO sector. We ourselves are so divided that you cannot face conservation challenges that we have with divided. You can have viewpoints which are different, but you cannot have divided opinion, especially on areas which are not just either biodiversity areas or social areas or developmental areas, they are blended together. See, today's conservation cannot be isolated from economic, political, and social dimension. The moment you try to do that, your advocacy is going to fail, because that entire approach of conservation without people, or remove all the people from protected areas, I think it's a redundant history in today's time. You may succeed in one or two places, but by and large that will not work. What has happened is we ourselves have cut short choices of government, and I'll tell you one simple example. Now let's take energy sector today in this country. You need power for 1.2 billion people. There is no doubt about it. We cannot go back to 300 years with those candle lights and live with that kind of life. Those days are gone, long gone. Today we live a modern time where you require power for everything, whatever we do. To generate power that you want to give it to 1.2 billion people, you have only four sources that you have today. You have hydro, you have thermal, you have nuclear, or you have non-conventional, whether wind or solar. Now look at this sector as an NGO point of view. We have certain NGOs which are so against hydro, right or wrong, that large dams are kind of untouchables now for many people. That it destroy large catchment, it destroy a lot of people, their livelihoods. Completely agree. No disagree. I'm just giving a point of view. I'm not saying what is good or bad. So there is a section of NGOs or groups which oppose hydro. Then there is a section which oppose thermal because it produces a lot of emissions. You have to then dig coal, and then forests get destroyed, people get displaced. So coal is bad, so we don't want coal. Then there is one section which says we don't want nuclear because if something goes wrong, then the whole population will destroy. Again, then you have to mine uranium somewhere. So we don't want nuclear. Now you don't want hydro, you don't want thermal, you don't want nuclear. Now even for wind and solar, we said no, we don't want wind and solar to come in Rajasthan because it is problem for my migratory birds, for bustard, for all large flying birds. We don't want wind in Western Ghats because it looks ugly on the top of Western Ghats, but you have to cut through the Western Ghats. So wind is not something that you aspire to. Now, if you have this kind of a situation where collectively we oppose every single source of energy, then what choices we are leaving government to do? So today, this entire polarized, situation, that what we see, that government said to hell with you. Anyway, you keep opposing whatever we say, so we will do whatever we want. We have to understand that we still have 50% population which lives below poverty, who are not concerned about environment. They are not concerned about air pollution, water pollution, your tigers, your elephants, your rhinoceros. Their concern is whether they will get two times a meal for their family. When you have that reality, I think our approach to conservation has to be very pragmatic and practical. So we have to fundamentally change the way we function as institutions, as NGOs. I think we also need to be more responsible. And I think that is where BNHS stands different than many, that our advocacy is based on science. We do not hesitate to go to government saying that, no, sir, this area is where we should not do development. But then we should also have a courage to hold hand of government saying that, yes, we can do it here, but these are the 10 mitigation measures that we need. And we only do one thing, that we oppose every single thing that comes on our way. Now, that is not going to solve the problems for us, because all our resources now are left within this last remaining either forest pockets or in our last ocean beds, remaining good quality ocean beds. We will have this conflict coming to us every day, every single resource, every single site, every single protected area. I think a lot of people will have to rethink the way we are looking at conservation today. Today, it's a very complex social system we have, very complex political system we have, very complex economic system we have. We today, every one of us, every single penny that we earn today, I call it as a red money because at somewhere it is coming through at the cost of environment somewhere here and there. I think sustainable development should not be used as a I would say a glamorous word which has been today used in all these conventions and meetings. And let's talk about sustainable development. 99% do not even understand what sustainability means. That's my fundamental point. I think sustainability looks good when you do not have anybody below poverty line. Today, my sustainability definition is different. I have certain lifestyle so long as I am able to run it. I mean, no matter how economical I do, but it's still different than your context of sustainability and the person who doesn't have any means of living. We all sit in ivory tower and talk about conservation without knowing that half of population of this country is still below poverty line. They still do have a very dismal living condition. We are still not able to do justice to them. I am not saying that then you start mining everywhere, you start building dams everywhere. I think we need to strike a balance between our viewpoints. Well, interest group always will remain. I mean, that's how our human society is. But we as an institution, as a BNHS, my job is to keep BNHS name high, head high on shoulder, because we have this huge 135 years legacy. Don't compromise on science. Make a scientific viewpoint. But when it comes to hold government hand, like we are today helping government of Maharashtra in doing mitigation from Navi International Airport. We never thought ourselves from our side to that time about 10 years ago to go to government saying this, that site selection may be wrong because this is a problem. We started breaking up this issue only when everything got materialized. I think therefore working with government right from the inception of idea is very, very important. Because if you would have told government that time 20 years ago that yes, there is a very high aviation risk to this project in this place, probably government would have said, okay, then let's not consider this site. Today we have to look at only mitigation measure. Let's look at another very classic example of Mumbai Nhava Sheva Sea Link project. Lot of emotions are attached to that. The entire flamingos will disappear. It will destroy the whole flamingo habitat in Mumbai. There are 150,000 flamingo. I think it's a misplaced fear for me. These flamingos are not there because of Mumbai or because of these mud flats. We have more than 4 million hectares of mud flats across east and west coast of India. Why these flamingos are there? They are there because these mud flats are super rich in food. They are super rich in food because there is a warm water going through the power plants and refineries, and there is a raw sewage going there. As a marine ecologist, rather those who understand marine ecology or biology will tell that this is a perfect combination for very high productivity of mud flats. These
Correct.
birds are coming there for food. Of course, if bridge doesn't come, that's an ideal situation. But if bridge is a necessity to connect one place to other place, then you have to work with government saying, then what is the problem for MTHN? It is not the bridge that will be a major problem for this bird. It is the pollution, heavy metal contamination of those mud flats will be a real problem for the birds because those heavy metals will continue to accumulate in these birds, which will compromise their health. And we never talked about this issue for last 20 years.
Mm.
All we kept saying is that this bridge is bad. Everybody has their own viewpoints on that. I have, as a marine ecologist, a clear viewpoint that you close down those power plants and refineries, you treat all raw sewage, stop all raw sewage going to sea. By 10 years, there will be no birds left because there won't be that kind of food available for so much population to sustain. At times, hold hand of government saying that let's do, but let's do it right. Let's do best of the mitigation. Let's not compromise on the mitigation. But at the same time, there are certain areas where we should stand up and say, no, sir, this area is not acceptable because the intrinsic value of this area far more than your economic or any other argument. Now, that also courage we should have. In
Mhm.
fact, one of the committees I resigned, I said, I'm not going to sign on this because this is not just wrong, this is suicidal for ecological point of view. somewhere we have to have a balanced perspective, which I don't see today. Is so polarized that whatever government says, there is somebody who stands up and say, we don't want this, I don't want it in my backyard, but somewhere it has to come.
This balanced approach and balanced attitude is what signifies sustainability. Sustainability, after all, is what? It's being balanced on both sides of the poles, as well as on both sides of the spectrum of the problems that we do have at hand. How spiritual Deepak Apte is?
I'm not spiritual person at all. For me, whatever I can do to save nature is spirituality for me. My tranquility of ocean is a spirituality for me. But when I look at nature, when I look at forest, when I look at my sea, I think for me, nature is a spiritual leader.
No, actually, you denied yet that you are not a spiritual individual, but in your whole act and your living throughout your careers so far of 3 decades, there are glimpses of spirituality. I mean, your approach to be have balanced approach to development and to conservation is a spiritual approach. For in my opinion, we all are born spiritual. Spirituality in end is what? How well you understand yourself is spiritual. And for what I spotted in last 2 hours is that Deepak Apte knows very well that he wasn't an intelligent student, but he was street smart. And to have that courage to say, hey, look, I'm not intelligent, but I'm street smart. I can get my way through. To me, that's spiritual.
For me, when I get my peace of mind, for me that's a spirituality,
Correct.
and I find that peace either on seashore or in forest or going into mountains or even when I'm painting with my watercolors and brush. So
How is Deepak Apte at home?
well, that you should ask to my wife and kids. Lot of things I think my wife started learning about me in last 4 months when I'm almost confined to home. Now she knows I can swab the mop the room, I can clean the utensils, I can do a bit of cooking. I can put my laundry in place. So I could not devote much of the time to my family because, as you know, I got married early. So there was a lot of struggle for me for almost 20 years. It's never been very easy, but I think I'm making up time now. I definitely will not work till 65. There's no question of it. Another 5 years maximum. And
Mhm.
because then I want to give whatever time thereafter left while I can go around, move around to my family, to my wife, and that last remaining leg of life to your family,
Mhm.
uh, your kids. They probably don't need you by then, but still, whatever you can do for them, then is great. But definitely for Anaga, because she has really given so much to me in terms of her time and her support, and she has given away her bright career, for the sake of uh, to let me pursue, my own hobbies and passions. So another 5 years is all what I see really working full time. Then it's all time for family.
Mhm. You must be missing diving now for past 4 months. That's one thing that you could not do. But you must have caught up on your painting.
Yeah, no, I was not able to dive for almost last 2 years. My left ear has started developing some problems. The moment you have weak eardrums, it's too risky to dive. I still do diving, but not as much as I would have loved to. And therefore, I've slowly now started going to mountains because I still can climb there and go to forest, which I never got opportunity to actually, do. It's time for me now to connect to a different landscapes. I love to do paintings, and I'm happy doing that. I have no aspiration to do any more writing after my retirement. I will have my brush, paper, and paint. That's more than enough.
Many look at you as a successful marine biologist, look at you as a successful administrator in biodiversity. What are your secrets of success?
Well, I think be kind with everybody. That's the biggest asset today I have as a head of an institution. Today, 200 people can stand by me, not because I'm director, but because I'm as a good leader and a human being. The first thing and the most important thing I always practiced as in my career is to speak for those who don't have voice. You have to speak for those who don't have voice. It's very important to look after your people. So this success is not about Deepak Apte's success. This is success is about that I could galvanize this entire team to as one single unified unit. So this is 240 people success that I am able to deliver this work. There is a lot of good that also happened in your life. I think take that good forward. Work as a team. I think if you are not working as a team, if you do not carry with you every member of your family in an office, then you may be a great director, but you are a failed leader. It is a skill of a leader to get work done from your employees in a way that they feel ownership and they take proud of working for you. It's not about a position of power. It's about how you galvanize your team.
That you are a very private person. But I ask this to all my guests, the role that Anaga has played in your life and how it has shaped you as a parent to a beautiful kids.
I am a terrible father to say because I hardly could give time when they required most. And now time has come when they don't need me so anymore because they are grown up kid. My son is 29. My daughter, she is going to finish a master's in psychology, and she's like me. Doesn't care about damn anything. She will do what she feels it right in her righteous way. Uh, and but my son is very very shy. He's like mother, very quiet and very simple. I think these are two north and south pole. My two kids. Daughter is completely vagabond, what we call it as. Don't follow any social norms and doesn't care about anything. Son is very quiet, very shy, very soft spoken. Have a very small circle like me. So he has carried some characters from me and some from Anaga. I think Anaga has been phenomenal. She is an extraordinary woman, I would say, and uh, our marriage remains stable only for her. Looking at the kind of colorful life and character I was in my early college days. Uh, well, obviously, I definitely was not a character who will do arranged marriage. So I kind of met her in Ruya. Well, that's why I've said that somewhere I have a deep feeling that she's the right one for me. But to have a life partner who will be with you in all difficult times is more important than job. So I married to her, and I give due credit to both my parents and her parents that they agreed to marry her to me when I was having no job. So my first camera, when I got this, I have to shamelessly borrow money from my wife. I was having no money to buy even my own small camera 30 years ago. Yeah, I think she's incredible woman. I had never seen such a. She has got fantastic willpower. You cannot break her under any circumstances. And then we had some absolutely uh, close neighbors. One of our neighbor, when I was staying in rented house, is Dr. Page, family Mr. and Mrs. Dr. Page. And my son almost was with them all the time. We had very lovely caretaker, Mrs. Damle. I think all those relations existed because of Anga. I am in completely antisocial in that sense. So we are, I think, North and South Pole, both. And that's probably why our marriage survived for 32 years. I think that entire credit is to her.
He says he's antisocial and a private person. I would disagree with this belief of Deepak. To me, he's very kind hearted and a man with full of purpose for life. Do let me know, how did you like this episode of Vishwas in Conversation with Dr. Deepak Apte, Director of the Bombay Natural History Society. If you would like to see a person of eminence in one of the next episode of Vishwas in Conversation, then do write their details in the comment below. See you in the next episode of Vishwas in Conversation. Till then, have a great time. And hey, do not forget to like this episode, share it. And yes, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, then do subscribe and don't forget to press that bell icon so that you get early notification of the upcoming episodes.